carport is generally considered an overhang not inside the building if it is attached to the house, has a roof or covering, and is not enclosed by walls. In the situation described, where the carport has been attached to the house for 30 years and has a roof, it would likely be considered an overhang and not inside the building. NEC Article 230.24a3 allows for a service drop to be attached to the building at a height of not less than 3 feet above finished grade for single-family dwellings. NEC Article 230.24a4 allows for a service drop to be attached to the building at a height of not less than 18 inches above finished grade if it is located under a car or truck port and within 6 feet of the nearest supporting structure. In this specific case, the inspector is correct in stating that the carport is not considered inside the building. However, they may be misinterpreting the exception in Article 230.24a4. Under Exception 4, the service drop can be attached 18 inches above finished grade under the carport because the carport is considered an overhang and not inside the building, and the drop is within 6 feet of the nearest supporting structure, which is the house. To further clarify the requirements for service drops and carports, you should consult the National Electrical Code, specifically Article 230.24, and the Montgomery County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, Division 3, Section 13.312. These resources provide detailed information on building codes and interpretations relevant to this situation. The National Electrical Code provides standards for safe electrical installations, while local ordinances like those in Montgomery County, Maryland, may have specific amendments or interpretations that apply to your jurisdiction. When an electrical inspector says that a carport is not considered inside, they are likely referring to the common understanding of what constitutes an enclosed space versus an open structure. Building codes typically distinguish between enclosed structures, which are treated as part of the main building, and open structures like carports, which have different requirements. Because the carport is attached to the house and has a roof, it might seem like it should be considered part of the building. However, because it lacks walls, it's generally classified as an overhang. As an overhang, it falls under different rules in the electrical code. Now, concerning the height of the service drop, NEC Article 230.24 outlines the minimum required clearances for service drops over various areas. The general rule is that service drops must have a certain vertical clearance to ensure safety and prevent accidental contact. But there are exceptions. Exception number 3 in NEC Article 230.24 states that for single-family dwellings, the service drop can be attached to the building at a height of not less than 3 feet above the finished grade. This is applicable when the service drop is attached directly to the building and not running over a driveway or other accessible area. Exception number 4 in NEC Article 230.24 provides an allowance for situations where the service drop is located under a carport or truck port. In this case, the service drop can be attached to the building at a height of not less than 18 inches above finished grade, provided that it is within 6 feet of the nearest supporting structure, like the house. The rationale behind this exception is that the carport roof provides a degree of protection, reducing the likelihood of accidental contact. Therefore, the lower clearance is permitted. If the inspector has stated that the carport is not inside but also insists that you cannot have a drop of 3 feet over the carport, there might be a misunderstanding of the exceptions or a misapplication of the rules. It's important to clarify the specific reasons for the failed inspection and to refer to the exact wording of the NEC and local codes to ensure compliance. Review Article 230.24 with the inspector. If the service drop is indeed under the carport and within 6 feet of the house, then the 18-inch clearance should be acceptable. If there is still disagreement, it may be beneficial to seek a second opinion from another qualified electrical inspector or a licensed electrical engineer. They can provide an independent assessment of the situation and help resolve the issue. Additionally, keep in mind that local amendments to the NEC can vary, so it's crucial to consult the specific electrical code adopted by Montgomery County, Maryland. These codes and standards are regularly updated to reflect new technologies, safety practices, and industry best practices. Staying informed about these changes is essential for electrical professionals to ensure they are providing safe and compliant installations. Understanding the definitions and exceptions within the NEC and local building codes is critical for resolving disputes and ensuring compliance with electrical regulations. Always consult the latest versions of these codes and seek expert advice where needed to ensure the safety and correctness of electrical installations. To further clarify the requirements, consider the following breakdown of the key aspects. First, define what constitutes a carport. A carport is an open-sided structure used to shelter vehicles. It typically consists of a roof supported by posts or beams but does not have fully enclosed walls. This open design differentiates it from a garage, which is fully enclosed. Second, review NEC Article 100, which contains definitions of terms used in the code. While it may not explicitly define a carport, it provides definitions of related terms such as building, structure, and dwelling unit. These definitions help establish the context for applying the code requirements. Third, regarding NEC Article 230.24a, which covers clearances of service drops, understand that this section specifies the minimum vertical clearances required for service drops above various areas, such as roadways, walkways, and rooftops. The clearances are based on safety considerations to prevent accidental contact with the service conductors. Fourth, examine the exceptions to NEC Article 230.24a. Exception number 3 allows a reduced clearance of 3 feet above finished grade for service drops attached to single-family dwellings. This exception applies when the service drop is directly attached to the building and does not extend over driveways or other accessible areas. Exception number 4 allows a further reduced clearance of 18 inches above finished grade for service drops located under a carport or truck port, provided that the drop is within 6 feet of the nearest supporting structure. This exception recognizes that the carport roof provides some protection, justifying the lower clearance. Fifth, interpret the local amendments to the NEC. Local jurisdictions often adopt and amend the NEC to address specific local conditions or requirements. These amendments can modify or supplement the NEC provisions, so it's essential to consult the local electrical code to ensure compliance. In Montgomery County, Maryland, the local electrical code is based on the NEC but may include additional requirements or interpretations. 6. Address the specific scenario. In the given scenario, the inspector's interpretation seems to be inconsistent. On one hand, the inspector states that the carport is not considered inside the building, which aligns with the common understanding of carports as open structures. On the other hand, the inspector objects to the 3-foot drop over the carport, which contradicts the allowance provided by exception number 4 of NEC Article 230.24a. 7th, resolve the conflict. To resolve this conflict, communicate with the inspector. Discuss the specific provisions of NEC Article 230.24a, particularly exception number 4, and explain why the 18-inch clearance should be acceptable in this situation. Provide documentation, such as copies of the NEC and local codes, to support your argument. If necessary, request a meeting with the inspector's supervisor to seek clarification and resolution. 8th, consider a second opinion. If you are unable to reach a satisfactory resolution with the inspector, consider obtaining a second opinion from another qualified electrical inspector or a licensed electrical engineer. An independent assessment of the situation can help determine whether the installation complies with the applicable codes and standards. 9th, document everything. Keep detailed records of all communications with the inspector, including dates, times, and the content of the discussions. Document any code references or interpretations provided by the inspector. This documentation can be helpful if you need to appeal the inspector's decision or seek further clarification. 10th, appeal if necessary. If you believe that the inspector's decision is incorrect or unfair, you may have the right to appeal the decision to a higher authority. The appeals process varies depending on the local jurisdiction, so consult the local building department or electrical licensing board for information on how to file an appeal. By following these steps and consulting the relevant codes and standards, you can effectively address the inspector's concerns and ensure that the electrical installation is safe, compliant, and meets the requirements of the NEC and local electrical code. Let's further elaborate on the key code sections and definitions to provide a comprehensive understanding. First, carports versus garages. Understand the distinction. A carport is typically defined as a structure with a roof supported by columns or posts, used for sheltering vehicles, but lacking fully enclosed walls. A garage, on the other hand, is a fully enclosed structure used for storing vehicles and other items. The absence of walls in a carport is the key difference that affects its classification under building and electrical codes. Second, NEC Article 100 definitions. Although the NEC does not explicitly define carport, Article 100 provides definitions of related terms that help in understanding the code's intent. A building is defined as a structure that stands alone or is separated from adjoining structures by firewalls. A structure is defined as that which is built or constructed. A dwelling unit is defined as a single unit providing complete and independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, cooking, and sanitation. These definitions help clarify how different parts of a property are classified for the purpose of applying the NEC. Third, NEC Article 230.24 Service Drop Clearances. This section specifies the minimum vertical clearances required for service drops above various areas to ensure safety and prevent accidental contact. The required clearances vary depending on the area over which the service drop passes. For example, service drops over public streets, alleys, roads, and driveways have higher clearance requirements than those over residential properties. Fourth, NEC Article 230.24 Exceptions 3 and 4. Exception number 3 allows a reduced clearance of 3 feet above finished grade for service drops attached to single-family dwellings. This exception applies when the service drop is directly attached to the building and does not extend over driveways or other accessible areas. Exception number 4 allows a further reduced clearance of 18 inches above finished grade for service drops located under a carport or truck port, provided that the drop is within 6 feet of the nearest supporting structure. This exception recognizes that the carport roof provides some protection, justifying the lower clearance. Fifth, Montgomery County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 13, Division 3, Section 13-312. This section of the Montgomery County Code of Ordinances addresses building construction and code administration. It references and adopts the International Building Code (IBC) and the National Electrical Code (NEC) as the basis for building and electrical regulations in the county. It may also include local amendments or interpretations that modify or supplement the IBC and NEC provisions. It is important to consult this section to determine any specific requirements that apply in Montgomery County. Sixth, interpreting the inspector's concerns. The inspector's concerns may stem from a misunderstanding of the exceptions or a misapplication of the rules. It is possible that the inspector is not fully aware of exception number 4 in NEC Article 230.24 or that they are misinterpreting the requirements for its application. It is also possible that the inspector has concerns about the structural integrity of the carport or the potential for damage to the service drop from vehicles or other objects. Seventh, resolving the conflict through communication. Open communication with the inspector is essential for resolving the conflict. Clearly explain the basis for your interpretation of the code and provide supporting documentation, such as copies of the NEC and local codes. Ask the inspector to explain the specific reasons for their objection and to provide code references to support their position. If necessary, request a meeting with the inspector's supervisor to seek clarification and resolution. Eighth, obtaining a second opinion. If you are unable to reach a satisfactory resolution with the inspector, consider obtaining a second opinion from another qualified electrical inspector or licensed electrical engineer. An independent assessment of the situation can help determine whether the installation complies with the applicable codes and standards. A second opinion can also provide valuable insight into the inspector's concerns and potential solutions. Ninth, documenting the process. Keep detailed records of all communications with the inspector, including dates, times, and the content of the discussions. Document any code references or interpretations provided by the inspector. Take photographs or videos of the installation to document its condition and configuration. This documentation can be helpful if you need to appeal the inspector's decision or seek further clarification. 10th, the appeals process. If you believe that the inspector's decision is incorrect or unfair, you may have the right to appeal the decision to a higher authority. The appeals process varies depending on the local jurisdiction, so consult the local building department or electrical licensing board for information on how to file an appeal. In Montgomery County, the appeals process is typically outlined in the County Code of Ordinances. Now, I would like to focus on how to handle the situation with the inspector in a constructive and professional manner. First, preparation and documentation. Before engaging with the inspector, thoroughly review the NEC, specifically Article 230.24 and the relevant exceptions. Gather all necessary documentation, including copies of the NEC local code amendments and any relevant permits or approvals. Prepare a clear and concise explanation of why you believe the installation complies with the code, referencing specific code sections and exceptions. Second, communication and clarification. When communicating with the inspector, be respectful and professional. Clearly explain your understanding of the code requirements and the basis for your installation design. Ask the inspector to clarify the specific reasons for their objection and to provide code references to support their position. Listen carefully to the inspector's concerns and try to understand their perspective. Third, collaborative problem solving. Approach the situation as a collaborative problem-solving exercise. Work with the inspector to find a solution that meets the code requirements and addresses their concerns. Be open to considering alternative installation methods or modifications that may satisfy the inspector's concerns without compromising safety or functionality. Fourth, seeking clarification from higher authority. If you are unable to reach a resolution with the inspector, consider seeking clarification from a higher authority, such as the inspector's supervisor or the local building official. Request a meeting to discuss the situation and to seek guidance on how to proceed. Provide all relevant documentation and explain your position clearly and concisely. Fifth, independent assessment and second opinion. If you are still unable to reach a satisfactory resolution, consider obtaining an independent assessment from a qualified electrical engineer or another certified electrical inspector. An independent assessment can provide an unbiased evaluation of the installation and can help identify any potential code violations or safety concerns. Sixth, formal appeals process. If you believe that the inspector's decision is incorrect or unfair, you may have the right to file a formal appeal. The appeals process typically involves submitting a written appeal to the local building department or electrical licensing board, along with supporting documentation and evidence. The appeals board will review the case and make a decision based on the applicable codes and regulations. Seventh, maintaining detailed records. Throughout the entire process, maintain detailed records of all communications, meetings, and decisions. Document all code references, interpretations, and any modifications made to the installation. This documentation can be invaluable if you need to defend your installation or pursue further appeals. Eighth, professional conduct. Throughout the entire process, maintain a professional and respectful demeanor. Avoid getting into arguments or making personal attacks. Focus on the facts and the code requirements, and work collaboratively to find a solution that meets the needs of all parties involved. Ninth, learning from the experience. Regardless of the outcome, take the opportunity to learn from the experience. Review the code requirements and any feedback provided by the inspector to improve your understanding and ensure compliance in future installations. 10th, continuous professional development. Stay up to date on the latest code changes and industry best practices by attending continuing education courses, workshops, and seminars. This will help you maintain your professional competence and ensure that you are providing safe and compliant electrical installations. Finally, let's delve into the details of documenting the electrical work and understanding the role of permits in ensuring compliance. Third, the importance of permits. Electrical permits are required for most electrical work to ensure that the installation meets safety standards and complies with local codes. A permit typically involves submitting plans and specifications for the proposed work, paying a fee, and scheduling inspections at various stages of the project. Second, the permit application process. The permit application process typically involves providing information about the scope of the work, the location of the project, and the qualifications of the contractor or electrician performing the work. The application may also require detailed drawings or diagrams showing the electrical layout and wiring schematics. Third, the inspection process. Once the permit is approved, the electrical work is subject to inspection by a qualified electrical inspector. The inspector will verify that the installation meets the requirements of the NEC and local codes and that it is safe and properly installed. Inspections are typically conducted at various stages of the project, such as after the rough wiring is completed and before the walls are covered. Fourth, types of inspections. There are typically several types of electrical inspections, including rough-in inspections, which are conducted before the walls are covered, and final inspections, which are conducted after the work is completed. Rough-in inspections ensure that the wiring is properly installed and grounded and that all connections are secure. Final inspections verify that all electrical equipment is properly installed and functioning and that the installation meets all applicable code requirements. Fifth, documentation requirements. Proper documentation is essential for obtaining electrical permits and passing inspections. Documentation typically includes detailed drawings or diagrams showing the electrical layout, wiring schematics, and equipment specifications. It may also include calculations to verify that the electrical system is properly sized and that it can handle the anticipated load. Sixth, record keeping. Keep detailed records of all electrical work, including permits, inspections, and any modifications made to the installation. This documentation can be invaluable for future maintenance, repairs, or upgrades. It can also be helpful if you ever need to sell your property or obtain insurance coverage. Seventh, compliance with codes and standards. Ensure that all electrical work complies with the latest edition of the NEC and any applicable local codes or regulations. Familiarize yourself with the code requirements and follow them carefully throughout the design and installation process. If you are unsure about any aspect of the code, consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer. Eighth, hiring qualified professionals. Hire qualified and licensed electrical contractors or electricians to perform electrical work. Verify that the contractor has the necessary experience, training, and insurance to perform the work safely and competently. Check their references and ask for proof of insurance and licensing. Ninth, safety precautions. Always take appropriate safety precautions when working with electricity. Turn off the power before working on any electrical circuits or equipment. Use insulated tools and wear appropriate personal protective equipment, such as safety glasses and gloves. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, hire a qualified professional to perform the work. 10th, continuous learning and improvement. Stay up to date on the latest electrical codes, standards, and best practices by attending continuing education courses, workshops, and seminars. This will help you maintain your professional competence and ensure that you are providing safe and compliant electrical installations. The key to navigating these situations effectively is understanding the code, documenting your work, and communicating clearly with inspectors.